show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Face in your face. Face in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with this channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it's called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions, but not everyone uses logic. So for that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And for this evening, the subscriber mode has been disabled, meaning anyone, whether it be a subscriber or not, can enter a comment in the chat. And I see here we already have one. Good evening, Zen. Thank you very much for stopping by. I think this is your first time here, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe you're watching the clouds. But in any case, thank you very much for stopping by. So, as always, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who have already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been a member of the Uncommon Folk from the very beginning, or just recently joined. I really appreciate all the love and support all you've given me. Good evening, Deadly. Thank you very much for stopping by. Oh, okay. Okay. So tonight I decided to not use the enable mode, so therefore everyone can have an opportunity to opine, so to speak. So I want to give a huge shout out to all those already subscribed or to the channel. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media. No, I did not forget you, Zen. I know you're here. Thank you very much. I know you're here, Zen. Thank you. So I want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, particularly Instagram and TikTok. Your ongoing support is greatly appreciated. Also want to give a huge shout out to all those who allow me to enter into your devices and all those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notification to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. Okay. So as you can see by the thumbnail, the topic for tonight is, does capital punishment prevent murder? Okay. So we're going to have a discussion regarding that topic. Okay. Now I know there are people who are in favor of capital punishment and against it. So we're gonna take a look at the facts. Okay, because we don't talk about such personal opinions. We actually bring facts to the surface. Now, before we get into the main topic, we're going to have another issue of In My Words. Now, as I reported last week, in the state of Alabama, they was going to use a new form of execution as far as to legally delete someone called hydrogen hypoxia. And what that means is, okay, so what they will do is they will strap the condemned person on a gurney, they will strap on a mask, and then the individual will inhale pure nitrogen, which causes the person to lose consciousness, and then the person is legally deleted. So as of Thursday night, they conducted the first execution using hydrogen hypoxia. Okay. And of course, there was a lot of controversy behind it. First of all, because it's a new form of legal deletion. Okay. And of course, there's always concern about whether it's cruel and unusual punishment. Well, depending how you look at it, some people look at any form of execution as cruel and unusual punishment. Others look at it as justice. Okay. We all are entitled to our opinions as they see fit. Okay. So what I'm gonna actually to bear in mind is that no one is right, no one is wrong. Everyone has their own personal opinions about it. So with that being said, let's see, just give me a moment. We're going to get into the main topic. Okay. Now, as I stated before, no, I did not block Deadly. Deadly is able to enter his comment. Okay. No, okay. I do not block. Okay. Let me make a couple of things clear. I generally do not block people unless they are being totally disrespectful towards me or disrespectful to anyone on the panel or on the chat. No. In fact, let me just show you. So as far as I can tell, no. So now before we discuss it, what we're going to do is we're going to define what is capital punishment. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, good evening, Kenshaw. How are you doing tonight? Thank you very much for stopping by. Okay. Now, before I continue, now if you have not done so, what I'm going to ask you to do is please check out Deadly underscore 30's channel. It's interesting. It's very humorous. It has humorous content. So I'm going to ask you, if you have not done so, please check his content and subscribe to his channel. And I'm going to ask you to do the same thing regarding Drag Diaries. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. The topic for tonight is, does capital punishment prevent murder? Okay. So let me just share my screen. Okay. Now, hopefully, the image will appear. Okay. So this is the definition of capital punishment, also known as the death penalty, and formerly called judicial homicide, is the state-sanctioned practice of killing a person as a punishment for a crime, usually following an authorized rule-governed process to conclude that the person is responsible for violating the norms that warrant said punishment. The sentence ordering that an offender be punished in such a manner known as a death sentence, and the act of carrying out a sentence is known as an execution. A prisoner who has been sentenced to death awaits execution is condemned and is commonly referred to being on death row. Okay. Etymology, the term capital, that is of the head, derived via the Latin capitalis from caput, head, meaning refers to execution by beheading. But executions are carried out by many methods, including hanging, shooting, lethal injection, stoning, electrocution, and gassing. Okay, so that is the actual definition. We're not going to get into the history behind it because I don't want to make this a 10-hour stream. Okay, now throughout history, there have been many forms of executing a condemned person. Okay, of course, you have hanging, where a person's hung by the neck until the person expires. You also have beheading, where someone takes an axe and removes the head from the body. There have been other forms of execution by before the time of guns. You have by archery, where people will shoot arrows until the person expires. And then you have other means of execution, which meant to make a statement. Okay, like for example, the Romans, one form of execution that they used was crucifixion. When a person would hang on a cross until they expired. Okay. Now, in the modern era, there are different types of execution. Okay. Of course, it was the French that developed the guillotine, where the head would be placed into the device, and then a huge heavy blade would come and chop the person's head off. Okay, I don't want to get into too graphic. Okay, and one of the reasons for the popularity regarding the guillotine, because it was considered a more humane means of execution. And then you have other means of execution, such as by firing squad, you have hanging. Later, you have by electrocution. Later, you also have lethal injection. And now, the most recent controversial form of execution is by nitrogen hypoxia, where the person is compelled to breathe pure oxygen, causing the person to lose consciousness, and the person expires. Okay. So why am I explaining all this? Because we need to have a firm understanding of what is capital punishment, known as the death penalty. Now, this is very controversial in many ways. First of all, you have two opposing camps when it comes to the death penalty. You have those who are in favor of execution as a means of as punishment, also as a means of making a statement, and also preventing others from committing crimes which will lead you to be executed, mainly murder or mass murder. Now, there are those that will wish to include other forms of criminal activity in order to be executed. I'm not going to state all of them because I don't want to make this into a 20-hour stream. Okay. So you have one group of individuals that are in favor of the death penalty. And then you have another group of individuals who are against the death penalty. Because, first of all, there are a few reasons why. Um, they consider it to be um, cruel and unusual punishment. Also, there's the issue where this the level of justice is not equal among economic groups. Meaning, if you're not the person. Good evening, Giorgio. Thank you very much for stopping by. The topic for tonight is, does capital punishment prevent murder? So, some of the reasons why there are those who are against the death penalty is that some consider it cruel and unusual punishment. Also, um, not everyone is given the same type of legal defense. Okay, even though in this country, um, people are allowed to have legal representation, sometimes legal representation is based on the financial resources that an individual has. Okay. Another reason why people object to the capital punishment, because there's always the possibility that an innocent person can be excuse me just one moment. I'm sorry. So and the fact of the matter is, the one thing which is a nightmare for some people is that a person is found guilty and sentenced to death, and later to find out that another person actually committed the crime. Meanwhile, a person was executed, you know, based on faulty evidence. Okay. Now I see here we have a guest. So before we let my guest in, let me just state for the record that the views of those who appear on the panel are not necessarily those of the host of the channel. Any attempt to copy the material without the consent of the host is prohibited. By appearing on the call, you waive your rights to your image. Some of the views people may hold may be considered offensive to some viewers. If you do not like the content, you can block the channel. And now we're going to welcome our guest. Good evening, George.
Hey, good evening, Jose. So I can't really stay for long, but I thought I'd just drop by just to kind of make a quick point in regard to this topic, because I think it's a pretty important one.
Yes. So what is your view when it comes to capital punishment? Good evening, Brooklyn William.
So it's been something that me and one of my aunties down in Louisiana were talking about. So I'm going to start with hers and mine. So she feels that life imprisonment would just be a lot better, just so that they could actually have a taste to suffer, just the same way that they inflicted the worst kind of suffering on their victims, in addition to the victims' families. In my case, I think that there are times where capital punishment is appropriate, because whether or not they are quote unquote suffering, as my auntie puts it, a lot of them truly do not have any kind of remorse over what they did. Like, if you're familiar with somebody like Michael Madison, and you guys in the chat could actually look him up, or you guys in the clouds can look him up. So Michael Madison, he is one of the most notorious serial killers in Ohio. And if you actually look on YouTube, you can actually see the victim's father try to lunge at Michael Madison after Madison laughed and smirked and smiled at the victim's father. And the victim's father, by the way, was a young woman. So for somebody like Michael Madison, I do not think that Madison is quote unquote suffering at all. In fact, he looked over, he gleefully laughed and looked like he was having a good time at the courthouse at the time. So clearly, it's probably not worth our tax-paying dollars to keep that man alive, because how much does it cost to take care of each inmate per year with our tax-paying dollars? Like 70,000 or so, but correct me if I'm wrong. So honestly, let's just have the person delete it, because some people truly deserve it. But then again, I do respect how my auntie feels about that. But in my case, yes, life imprisonment is better. But in some cases, like Michael Madison case, I think capital punishment is reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's just me, but clearly some people just truly deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I will say this in part. Despite what somebody like Michael Madison did, I just hope that hey, as he is approaching the, I guess you could say the quote unquote death chamber, when he's getting ready to get his lethal dose, I even hope that even some inmates like that will pray for repentance, change their hearts, like even meet up with like a minister or a pastor and maybe minister to them that only they wanted, okay? Because it's, only we personally can open our hearts to the Lord. But if somebody like Madison, who does deserve capital punishment, is willing to change his heart truly, then he could do that stuff as he's maybe preparing for his last meal or whatever. I do believe that. But in the interim, I want to pay $70,000 a year to keep somebody like Madison housed.
Well, as I think the perfect example regarding, if you want to call like a last minute conversion, was the crucifixion, where Jesus was hung with two thieves. One ridiculed Jesus and actually said to him, "If you're the Son of God, free yourself and free us." While the other thief, the other person, rebuked the other person, saying that we are properly being punished for our crimes because we do really deserve to be executed. But Jesus did not do anything wrong. And then this person said to Jesus, "Remember me when you enter into your kingdom." Now, that person died being saved. Okay. So there's always the possibility of conversion. Of course, one of the issues with the death penalty is that there's always the risk of executing the wrong person. Okay, and I think we just lost Georgia. But, look, when it comes to, this is how I look at it. When it comes to something like capital punishment, I don't believe there's a right way to look at it or a wrong way to look at it. Because the fact of the matter is, each side does have valid points, okay? And each person can give their justice. Each side can, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, though. But yeah, I heard your last comment, though, in regards to how there have been those cases where we have accidentally executed an innocent person. Absolutely. Now, long story short, there is still some lingering corruption going on in the judicial system. And a lot of people, even to this day, are being exonerated for stuff that they haven't even done. I think that people like that should continue to be exonerated. And I just think that just so many things in the judicial system should be improved to where, hey, instead of maybe taking somebody else's word for it, though, over what happened, I think stuff like that should be a little more thoroughly investigated so that we could truly see, okay, whether.
Yeah. No, I was just mentioning when when you accidentally left the panel, that both those who are in favor of capital punishment and against capital punishment both have valid points. Okay. I don't know. Maybe okay. So go ahead. Okay. I don't know. Maybe. Um. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Okay. Let's see if we can bring. Okay. Go ahead, please.
All right. Sorry about that, Jose. Did you catch what I said before I lost my Wi-Fi connection?
Yes, I did. And I said the follow up that both sides have valid points.
Exactly. I guess that's when shortly before I lost my Wi-Fi connection, I just said is that there absolutely is no denying that there is a lot of corruption within the judicial system, and that nowadays you still actually have like a lot of people who are being even exonerated to this very day after it turned out that they never committed the crime. But
Yes.
if we can actually improve that part of the judicial system in which we can do a far more thorough investigations, not just lazy investigations, which have led to people being wrongfully convicted and then wrongfully executed. I think if we improve that and then make sure that cases turn out to be those like the Michael Madison case, whereas clearly after thorough investigations, everything came out with the fact that he did commit those horrible crimes in Ohio. I think if we get it to that level, then there doesn't have to be any more wrongful deaths or wrongful convictions. Don't get me wrong, I get it'll take time, but then again, me and my auntie, we perfectly understand each other because it was a mutual transaction of nothing more but respect. But yeah, she just thinks that Madison should just sit there and rot and suffer, even though that man is not really suffering because he was entertained by the fact of what he was doing, and he made that clear when he smirked over to the father who tried to lunge at him.
Mhm. But one of the problem is, like, let's say an individual is found guilty and is charged with capital punishment. The problem is it can take several years or decades before they actually execute a person. So that means a person could be on death row for 20 or 30 years, getting 3 squares a day and whatever expenses that are made in order to keep this individual alive.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. And I get it. I get it. Part of the reason is um, there might be mitigating factors, maybe certain evidence that was not allowed to be entered, or maybe evidence that was misclassified. So obviously, what's going to happen is you're going to have appeal after appeal after appeal, meaning that the person could be on death row for, say, 20 or 30 years.
Like Kenneth Smith, who was just executed via nitrogen hypoxia down in Alabama over
Yes.
the murder that he committed back in 1988, 35
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and he was just executed just like a few days ago. Kenneth Smith.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And he managed to avoid execution because they could not find a vein to minister the chemicals.
Yeah, I think I missed that part in the story though, but all I just know is that it was like the first case where we used nitrogen hypoxia to execute an inmate who'd been on death row for 35 years.
Yeah.
But I will even say in a case like Kenneth Smith, deserves it, because also like you can also see that he is like slightly smirking in his recent mugshot if you notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the problem is it's not that simple to fix the system because let's keep it real. To fix the system will require a great deal of motivation, and that's something that I don't think we see that among our elected officials. Good evening, Irby. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge judicial overhaul in order to get things on the right track. It's going to take some time, and from now on, we're going to continue to see cases where inmates are being exonerated 10, 20, 30 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Of course, yeah, of course, there have been some very unique forms of execution that's been done. It was said, we don't know if it was true, that the Emperor Valerian was forced to swallow molten gold. Okay, that's a very painful way to expire. Um, of course, there have been ways to try to make it more humane. Good evening, Ramon.
Hey, good evening, Jose. How you doing? What's going on, George? How you guys doing?
nothing much, though. We're just pretty much having a little bit of a civil debate regarding like capital punishment. Jose made his point. I made my point. And my auntie down in Louisiana also made her points too regarding it, because it's a hot
Mhm.
topic in today's social climate.
Yes, yes. I mean, a long time ago, when it comes to capital punishment, where I'm from, that was outlaw a long time ago. So there is no such thing. But to a degree, I can understand why maybe it's better not to have wards of the state that can be that are just being a burden. I mean, because that's taxpayer money, like you say, your and we were talking about that on the previous live stream that Jose did about the subject. Um, uh, there are instances in which we're talking about like serial killers, murderers that have been proven beyond reasonable doubt that they did it. So I don't. In those instances, as long as it is proven beyond reasonable doubt, I don't really have a problem with it. Sometimes, and I'm not talking about uh, putting in the electric chair, because that will be, some people might consider that torture before death. But yeah, put a little injection or put some kind of cyanide cocktail in them. That's usually just puts makes somebody pass away, passed out, and then pass away. They're not gonna be suffering. They're not gonna be in pain while going through it. That's perfectly fine by me. Now, when it comes to the whole nitrogen thing, that's kind of like there are people that were against it because supposedly that it's experimental. It's like an experimental mode of execution, means of execution, and there were people that were having a problem with that. Now, if that doesn't cause extreme pain and suffering before passing away, I don't have a problem with it.
Mhm.
No, the thing is that there are the moral ramifications that comes with it. There are people that are against it, no matter the circumstances. I'm not completely against it. I mean, because um, there are those that know that they can commit a crime, and then they become wards of the state. Now, there are those that you were talking about we talked about it the previous on your previous live stream, Jose, that there are those that do take many years or decades for somebody on death row to be executed. But maybe it's because the state is getting some free labor out of them. That will be my guess when it comes to that. They're not
Mhm.
necessarily just sitting there and eating eating three times a day. Maybe those are being put on forced labor. We talked about it, how the 13th Amendment of the Constitution actually allows for that.
Yeah. Well,
Exactly. And
yeah.
there's
Well, I'm sorry. Well, here's some of the forms of execution that are being done around the world. Hanging, well, we don't know what that is.
Mhm.
Shooting by firing squad. Excuse me. Lethal injection. That's
Mhm.
when chemicals are entered through the bloodstream. Nitrogen hypoxia, where it happened to this person in Alabama. Electrocution.
Mhm.
Okay. The gas chamber,
Yeah.
where deadly gases are administered. Decapitation. And actually, one form of that is the guillotine. Okay.
No, but, well, the guillotine, that's something that the French invented that. But when it comes to the gas chamber, I understand that in California they still have that. And the electric chair, I don't know if Florida still has the electric chair, but I understand that they did that for a long time.
Okay,
my
actually,
home my home state used to do that, but yeah, that's been gone, bro, like since like the 70s.
Mm.
In my home state of California, we just only do this lethal injections.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, California. Oh no! Now I'll tell you this: because of California politics, people will definitely get on the system about reintroducing the electric chair.
Hmm.
well, currently, electrocution is only legal in the states of Florida, Kentucky, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Tennessee.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and
I thought Illinois had a form of lethal injection. Illinois doesn't have that.
it might be. It might be. I don't know. Rakim will be in a better place to answer that question if he was here.
Mm. All
Okay.
right.
Of course, another form, a very ancient form of execution is stoning.
Yeah. No, but that's that would be kind of like cruel and unusual type of punishment. That will be against a constitutional right. I mean, because punishment, yeah, but cruel, kind of like overly painful. I don't think that's allowed. Yeah, but
It
that's
boils, yeah, because it boils down to the argument of two wrongs don't make a right, and then yeah, me and Jose being believers, so that is something that we do believe in.
Mhm.
Yes.
So then there's an
Well,
issue too.
actually, yeah. Well, actually, stoning is permitted. Let me see, in Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Sudan, United Arab Emirates, Northern Nigeria, Mauritania, Iran, Yemen, and Brunei.
Yeah, but that has everything to do with Islam. The thing is that the Bible also talks about that. That's the common denominator. These are Muslim countries,
Yeah. In fact,
so
in fact,
it seems barbaric, yes, but you can find instances of stoning in the Bible too.
Yes, you
well,
can though, especially in books like Leviticus. But since we're not really like under the legalistic Mosaic laws anymore, it's kind of something that just no longer really applies.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right.
yeah.
But go on.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a perfect example in the Gospel of John where the Pharisees tried to tempt Jesus, and they brought a woman that they caught committing adultery. And in ancient times, adultery led to stoning. So they asked Jesus basically to try to trap him. And then Jesus said to the Pharisees, yes, you can stone her. Let the first person without sin cast the first stone. So one by
Mhm.
one, all those who wanted to have this woman stoned, they dropped their stones because they realized that they have, you know, done some evil stuff. Good evening, Rakim.
Hey, what's going on, Jose? How you doing tonight? Shout out to the fellas on the panel,
Okay.
JoJo.
The
What
topic
up?
for tonight, the topic for tonight: does capital punishment prevent murder?
Deletion, no, it does not. It hasn't, but
Mhm.
I do believe in capital punishment. I believe, depending on how heinous the crime is. I mean, for child touchers, rapists, yes, I do believe in capital punishment. For person, flipped out and deleted their family and different things like that. Yes, I do believe in capital punishment for people like that.
Mhm. Okay. Well, recently, in fact, last week, the state of Alabama, they performed their first execution using hydrogen hypoxia. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yes, I was aware of that. I was aware of the person that was deleted through. I hear it was a first time experiment for that. I believe in the beginning they tried to delete him through lethal injection a year ago, which they could not find a vein in his uh, to eject him um, with the fluid lethal injection. So it was held off until this year, which I thought they couldn't do that. I thought if they made an attempt and that attempt was botched, then you was just sentenced to life. But I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, one of the problem is that once a person is sentenced to receive capital punishment, it can take decades before the sentence is carried out.
Oh yeah, I've always known that. That's why you have people that sit on deletion row until they're well into their 60s or something like that. They could have committed this heinous act in their late 20s to early 30s, and they'll be sitting on deletion row for a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the guy in Alabama that we're talking about, that's Kenneth Smith, and he was on, I guess you could say deletion row, because I don't know if the other D word is appropriate for YouTube, but I guess I'll just say deletion roll. But he was on deletion roll since 1988 until he just got executed a few days ago. So that's
Yeah.
35 years for something
Yeah.
he did in his 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and yeah, he lived for a very long time on maybe I should say either deletion row or delete row. Say delete row. He lived on delete row for quite a long time. If he committed that crime in '88, that's the year I was born. So he
I was born 4 years after that, so he did this before I was even born.
yeah, that's so he lived for quite a long time. And yeah, like when it comes to that, but I'm one of those people. I don't mean to say it like this, but I'm definitely one of those people who feel like other people have to be deleted for good people, for other good people to live. I truly believe that because you have just like in the jungle, you have people that are predators that prey on on people, and they'll look for any weakness. They'll prey on children. They'll prey on women. You know, prey on the handicapped. Look for any people that they deem weaker to, to gain this acts upon.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that like those like Ramon and you, Jose, you probably remember Donald Harvey from the 70s and the 80s, right? We all remember what Donald Harvey was doing. Now, it was already proven beyond reasonable doubt that Donald Harvey was using his position as a nursing assistant to delete his patients, whether that was through like a poisoning or even smothering their patients at those hospitals at the time or the care homes. And it's been alleged that he deleted all the way up to, 80 patients. But since it was still proven beyond reasonable doubt that, yes, he deleted a lot of people, that's definitely like a solid grounds for capital punishment.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem there.
No, I mean, personally, I'm against capital punishment, but yet at the same time, I do believe both sides have valid points. Okay. My two main concerns is first of all, the system of justice is not level to those who are economically disadvantaged. Number one. Number two, there's always the fear that you might legally delete the wrong person. And that's something, that's a horrible thought. But yeah, I can see cases where, where people who commit such horrible things like preying on children, preying on the elderly, preying on those that are weak. I can see the rationale.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you on that one, Jose. That's why it needs to be a thorough investigation done, as far as looking into the case of somebody to make sure that they are the culprit in that crime that they committed before something like that happens. Because really, I'm gonna be honest. As a kid, when I saw the Green Mile, that's what made me think like that. Have you ever saw that movie, The Green Mile?
Michael Duncan Clark.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Michael Duncan Clark. Yeah.
That was a great movie, and it showed how he was imprisoned for a crime that he didn't commit, and he ended up paying the ultimate price based off of what somebody else did.
Yeah, and also there's even the real life case of George Stinney, if you know him, Rakeem.
Yeah, yes, I do.
George Stinney. He did not delete those two white girls in South Carolina.
No, he did not. He was just a child himself, and I think I believe he was like
14.
14. Yeah, 14.
1944.
Yeah, and it was a rush trial and everything, and he was sentenced to deletion. And they said the boy was so little that they had to prop him up on 2 Bibles before they even executed. And even to this day, I recently saw it was a while ago, but his family was fighting to clear his name, and the family of the 2 girls that was deleted refused to acknowledge that he wasn't the one that did that.
Right. And that also brings me to this point though, and I think it does give a lot of credence to your point, Jose, is that we still do have like crooked cops and crooked detectives who are going to fabricate something just to get the person charged and convicted. That still is a thing. Or they will kind of sit you there in the investigation room and just try to get you to say stuff to confess to something you didn't even do. Because that was also like Rakeem during like the case of George Stinney, because they just what did they do? So they pretty much coerced him into like a confession to say that he was the one who deleted the 2 girls. and they were just coercing him by coming up with a script for him to say, in addition to giving the boy ice cream too, to get him to confess to something he didn't even do. Now, you still have similar methods that are still used today, except no one's going to offer you ice cream as they're trying to fish for stuff that you obviously didn't even do. It still happens.
Speaking of that, if I can just touch on that a little bit. Unfortunately, with us living in a land of capitalism, the system like to capitalize off of crime, and that is the name of the game. To be able to take people that's not really that intelligent, and practically, if they're framed, who's going to really care? Just get the case done. Certain people, prosecutors, have to advance their career by taking cases, even though they know the person may be innocent. They'll hide evidence. They'll botch evidence. District attorneys, taking cases. It's even the thing with, it's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about getting your client off, and it's about, making getting the case. I was just watching a documentary not that long ago where it was a girl here in Chicago. She got railroaded in some type of criminal case that she didn't commit, and she ended up running into her prosecutor while she was working at Subway. And then he was asking her to make his sandwich, and she looked at him in the face and said, "You don't even know who I am, do you?" She was like, "You was the person that was on my case." She was like, "You railroaded me in that case, and I was not the person that committed that crime." And she said the guy just looked at her and said, "Look, I'm sorry. I was a young attorney, and I was looking to make a name for myself. And after doing that, I realized that the system is kind of corrupt and crooked. So now I'm a defense attorney, and I'm looking to help defend people." But that still doesn't really do much for her because, the damage is already done. So, people don't think about stuff like that because a lot of people have never stepped foot in the courtroom. When you said, George, about people, it was a cop here, it was a corrupt cop by the name of Ed Burns, who was responsible for beating confessions out of people and torturing people here in the city of Chicago in the late 80s, all the way not the late 80s, all the way from the 70s, 80s into the early 90s, where he was actually putting devices on their testicles to torture them into a confession for people that have it. It was a lot of people they had to reevaluate their cases after he was brought under charges, and there was a lot of people that was released from crimes that they didn't commit back in those days. So that happens quite a bit.
It does, and that's why nowadays you have more power than we think, and that is, before I speak, I want my lawyer present.
Mm-hmm.
That's a way around the crookedness.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the 80s, there was this huge case where 5 youths were accused of raping a white woman and how they got railroaded through the system.
About the Manhattan Five?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Those are the guys that Trump was campaigning to keep them in prison, even though the DNA evidence was exonerated. But Trump campaigned for them to be kept in jail. Yep.
Yeah. Well, actually, believe it or not, one of the 5 is now actually is on the city council right now as we speak as a representative.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
But the fact of the matter is, the system failed those 5, and they went through a lot of crap, which is why I feel the way I feel regarding capital punishment, because a person can easily be falsely accused and falsely held guilty.
No, Irby, the state of Illinois punishment. That is for places like Texas, Alabama. I believe Mississippi still has it. I'm not sure if the state of Tennessee has it. It's mostly, I don't know if Florida has capital punishment, but it's mostly southern states. And a lot of places where it's blue states, they don't have capital punishment. No, they do not.
Mhm.
In my home state of Cali, we still have it.
Oh yeah, you guys do still have it. Yep, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much, I definitely agree with what you're saying, Jose, because the Central Park Five, they, especially, I can't remember the name of one of the youngest. He went through hell in prison. He went through hell. He was even it was a guy, he's since passed on, but it was a guy that used to run with Fat Joe crew in the Bronx. And he said that it was actually a correctional officer that paid him to give one of those dudes $1.50 with a razor blade because they were charged with that crime. And see, and it goes to show you, once you have something on your jacket, people don't care if it's true or not true. Everyone's just going to run with it because that's the narrative that's put out there that you did it. So whether you're guilty or not, you did it, and you're going to bring on that type of energy and tension of people looking down on you, and depending on what you got on your jacket, people wanting to harm you.
True.
Yep.
Well,
Flat-
well, so I got to get going, guys. But it was you know, a pleasure to speak. But I have actually like one suggestion for you, Jose, that
Yes.
you could also do like a follow-up stream on even crooked doctors that we have nowadays, because did you know that we lose about 250,000 people annually from medical mistakes or medical errors as a result of crooked doctors, which is just as bad as the crookedness within the judicial system or within the police departments. But I think that'll also be a good follow-up topic.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
I'll
the
consider it.
issue of medical malpractice, because sometimes a lot of physicians, healthcare professionals, maybe they have incentives to have their patients over medicated, and that can be detrimental to somebody's recovery from whatever it is that they're suffering. But yeah, definitely, it's a complex issue, because I mean the healthcare industry is exactly that. It's an industry, but for profit. I mean, it shouldn't be like that. It
And
should be about prioritizing the welfare of the patients.
this is the stuff that people don't talk about. Just what Ramon said, you got a lot of people online that's talking about dumb stuff, but they don't talk about the corruption that's going on, whether it be in the judicial system, the corruption in the medical industry, the corruption in the food industry, and all of this stuff that we're putting in our bodies that
Mhm.
are that have chemicals in it that's not even allowed in other countries. A lot of
Oh
people
yeah,
are not talking about stuff like that. They just I don't know, but yeah, it's like this stuff is the real deal. This stuff is happening a lot.
Mhm.
Exactly. And one last thing, a movie recommendation I have is Serpico with Al Pacino, because that's a movie which details police corruption.
Absolutely, and that was a
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. That's something that happened. It's based on a true story. The man had to leave the United States. I think he's still in Switzerland or something like that. The thing is that
True.
he's in exile. The guy. So it is based on a true story. Mhm.
Yeah, but I'll definitely have to look into it. Thank you, George Ron. Look, as I stated before, both sides have valid points. Okay, those who are in favor of capital punishment, um, they look at it as a deterrent, because basically what you're doing is actually it's also making a statement, which is, if you commit these crimes, okay, this is what can happen to you. So I can see the logic behind that. There's also the logic regarding the fact that the system is, is corrupt. The judicial system is corrupt, and people can be falsely accused and then falsely convicted. So I do see the logic on both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree.
Okay.
Definitely, it's like I say, it's you make definitely some valid points, Jose. Now I don't know, like in the process of deletion, because people tell us a lot of stuff. Some people say that the ways that they use these deletion techniques are painless, but I beg to differ because some people say, oh, when they use lethal injection, it's the most peaceful way. But from what I heard, those people are in severe pain when that
Hmm.
fluid is injected into their veins because it's literally bursting your heart. It's just that they can't really, uh, you know, scream out or anything like that. And I know that
Yeah.
gas chamber was. I'm gonna tell you, you guys. Of course, I know you remember Ramon. Remember Training Day when Denzel told Ethan Hawke, "You're not gonna shoot no cop in the back, are you?" You know what they give you
Hmm.
for that? The gas chamber. You know what that smells like? Pine oil.
Pine oil. Yeah, yeah, I remember. I remember. Yeah, yeah. But I had heard about them having the gas chamber from before that, so I wasn't surprised. You would think that a liberal state like California wouldn't have a death penalty, but they do. They do. The ultimate penalty, I should say, because apparently there are certain words that you can't say. But yeah, yeah. And I agree with Irby that when it comes to the ultimate penalty, that will be is usually kind of like the southern states, because here in Texas we have that. Um, I don't- but yeah, but Jose mentioned the states that did have it. You already mentioned that, but they tend to be the southern states.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
No,
actually, see,
Oh,
yeah,
no, not really
see,
quick. Irby, he did win the Oscar for that one. that,
yeah,
that was a popular one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the fact of the matter is, see, one of the rationale regarding the guillotine is that was considered the first quote humane means of legal deletion, because
Well,
basically what
you will have to look in comparison what was being used before, because there were these creative ways to torture people, very medieval. The medieval ways of torturing people. Yeah, the guillotine in
Yeah,
comparison is humane because it's more quick. It's
yeah.
quicker, like more to the point.
You know what? My friend used to crack a joke when we was learning about this in social studies as a kid, and he was a funny guy, man, because he was just saying, he was like, man, if I ever had to get the guillotine back in those days, I'll make sure I had a big bright smile on my face. So once they chop off my head and my hair roll into the basket, the queen will look down and see that I'm still smiling, like different stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
that's some dark humor there.
but
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 True.
something, guys. I mean,
Mhm.
in ancient time, they had some crazy ways of legal deletion. Like, for example, there was crucifixion, which was a slow, painful, agonizing death. Okay. You had people that were thrown to wild animals and they were devoured alive.
Mhm.
Um, you have people that were skinned alive. You have people that were buried alive. Actually, it was claimed that the Emperor Valerian he was legally deleted by forced to swallow molten gold.
oh my God, how do you even do that?
Yeah, how do you even do that? Like you're complicating it too much. Like do something more straightforward and get it over with. Those are kind of like more of the cruel and unusual punishment type of thing, where you make the person that is being executed to suffer the most, suffer as much as possible, and that I don't believe. That I don't believe. You're
Yeah,
gonna be giving a punishment, make it quick, make it swift and quick.
yeah. A lot of that took place in medieval Europe. Even I'll take the guillotine any day before I take the rack. Remember the rack is when they would I think they would I forgot what it was, but it stretched your bones out. It literally stretched your bones out. Then they had it where they would tie you to one horse and tie you to another horse, and then smack the horses on the butt to get them to run, to split you open. And then they
Yeah,
had
yeah, that's what they did to they will do that to the slaves.
yep,
Over here.
absolutely. And if you notice, a lot of those tactics that they used in Europe, they just transported that mentality when it came to slaves in the New World. That's how they instilled the fear, because that same fear was instilled in the citizens of Europe when it came to the monarchs, when it came to capital punishment. What's another one? Quarting, when they used to court people, cut them up when they were still alive. I mean, look at the history of what they did to William Wallace, Scotland. Also, what else? The brazen bull, when they used to put people in that bull and they would light the fire underneath the bull, which it was a steel bull, and as they screamed and the smoke and all of that stuff would come out the nostrils of the bull. They had some really sick ways.
Yeah. It was creatively sick because it was very sadistic. That's the word. It was sadistic because it will be kind of like entertaining for them to see somebody suffer like that.
But you know something, guys. The Romans were notorious for this. I mean, they came up with some of the most insane ways to legally delete a person. Like, I mean, could you imagine? Okay, could you imagine you're forced to go into an arena in front of thousands of people, and then they let lions loose to devour you alive?
Yeah, I can. And you know what's crazy? When you think about it, the Roman Empire was the beginning of being able to distract the audience from what you're doing with mishandling funds and different stuff like that. And that was kind of like the birthplace of the media, because when you think about it, in order to make sure that the citizens did not catch on to what you were doing, or the fact that they didn't have any money or they were poor, we're going to entertain them with the Colosseum. And we're going to we're going to let the gladiators fight to keep them entertained. That way they're not looking at what we're doing. Or we're going to...
it was all a bit distraction.
Yep.
Not being documented.
Yep. So...
I mean, if you take a look at history, like the slave rule of Spartacus, you know what happened? You had about 6,000 slaves that was crucified. Yeah, and then you have the crosses leading going to Rome. So you can just imagine the statement that was being made then.
Yeah. So it's crazy because a lot of people disregard history. They say, "Oh, that's not that important," but they don't realize how it plays a part into the origins of how things are to this day. Like everything.
Yeah. Well, the old saying, those that disregard history are doomed to repeat it. Because when it comes to things that are factual and historical, you can try and bury it, you can try to hide it, but it always finds a way to come out back again.
Right.
It always finds a way.
Like, I looked that stuff up. I remember I was like looking up capital punishment in Europe and different things like that, and really it was for little of nothing. You can get framed over there or somebody caught you with a page of the Bible, and because at one point only the monarchs was able to have the Bible because they didn't want anybody to have it, so they can be able to manipulate people into doing
Or books, period.
or books. Period. Yeah, and you know what's crazy?
Education at all. I
You know,
mean,
yeah.
you can't control people if they are educated. Hmm.
And you know what's crazy about that, Ramon? That you said that those
Hmm.
same tactics was used in slavery. Make
Yeah.
sure that they don't have the Bible. Well, we'll let them. At one point, they couldn't have the Bible, but then we could let the Africans read the Bible, but make sure that they can't learn any of the other books, and that way they'll follow God's law. Because if following us is following God's law, because we are made in God's image, and
Hmm.
therefore they'll blindly follow us. So,
Yeah.
Well, I had the privilege of actually visiting the Legacy Museum and Memorial, and to see some of the people that was lynched simply for handing a note to a white person.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
it was worse than that, man. They was finding any reason down south at that particular time. Um, man, I mean, hell, you can just watch the footage from the Birmingham church bombings in the '60s, when they set that bomb off and killed, oh, deleted those young girls in the churches and everything. And that was during the time I think Dr. King was marching and different things like that. So yeah, it was ruthless. It was ruthless. Now, when people started coming up here to the north, it was especially like in my city, it was just imaginary lines. It was just people knew areas not to cross and where not to go, but it wasn't as like pronounced as the South or segregation. You just didn't know. You knew where to go and where not to go, and you
Hmm.
knew in certain neighborhoods you were not welcome and you were not allowed.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Let me tell you something. The images that I've seen when I went to the Legacy Museum, and one of the things that some of the displays they had these holographic images of individuals that serving multiple years um, incarcerated, and you were able to listen to a hologram talking about how what 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 led them to be incarcerated, and it's a very bleak picture.
Oh yeah, definitely. And to what Irby's just said a minute ago, he said it was a prison in Louisiana called Angola that looks just like a plantation. Yeah, the nickname for that prison was called Angola because in that particular area, that's where a majority of the slaves that they brought into that area was from Angola. That's why they called it that, Irby. Yeah,
Mhm.
that prison is still here to this day. Like even the prison in New York, Rikers Island. Rikers Island is named Rikers was a slave catcher.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of that stuff was it's all it's all in the history and different things like that. I mean, what if you would go to parts of Tennessee? I think I'm not sure if that was Memphis or I think it might have been somewhere in Tennessee. They got um, Confederates, Confederate statues and different things like that. And the funny thing is, because it switches depending on who you talk to, because you have some people that'll say, "Oh, this is our heritage," and different things like that. But then at the same time, these was the people that defied the United States and had their own agenda in mind. So therefore, they were traitors of the United States. But people are disingenuous with what they say and different things like that. But yeah,
Well, unfortunately, there's been some bleak pages in U.S. history, and some people will love to paint a certain um, allergy, certain image that that the old soft was just being benign, and that basically they were helping these people, where they was exploiting these people.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just that's basic knowledge, you know. Like all of those movies that's still around that you can see, The Ghost of Mississippi, Mississippi about Mega Everest, Mississippi Burning, with Gene Hackman. Uh, it was like so many, different movies about that time. And the funny thing is, I tell people all the time they make these movies to to reflect on that.
Yeah.
That Hollywood keeps producing these type of movies, and but yeah, like it's so many movies and documentaries you can watch um on the South. On actually, one of my grandfather knew people in Money, Mississippi, where that situation happened with Emmett Till. They knew people there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like people like to say we're not as distant as people like to portray it to be. It only happened 50 years ago, 60 years ago at the most. So when people try to act like, oh, this was such a long time ago, no, it was not. If you can still look at footage and it's in black and white, and you can look at those interviews of how people thought back, and you'll see it wasn't that long ago, and that a lot of that
Well,
thinking here today.
if you take a look at the cartoons in the 50s, the 40s, and 50s, and even the 60s,
Oh yeah,
I mean, you couldn't produce those cartoons today, because you would be, you would lose your jobs. I mean, particularly like, for example, let me just give you a perfect example. I don't know if you recall the Dick Tracy cartoons of the 60s. Maybe Ramon, you might have, because Raheem, that was before your time. And then you
Which
have,
cartoons you're talking about? The old school
I think
Looney
I
Tunes?
to myself, the Looney Tune cartoons, even some references in Tom and Jerry. I saw all of that myself. The original Elmer Fudd was like pretty much like a cartoon in blackface with big lips, big forehead, a caricature of a black person. So yeah, I've seen a lot of that Bugs Bunny and blackface. I've seen all of that stuff. And the funny thing is, as a kid, you don't even realize it. What else? Seen them like Tom had like his the woman that took care of him was like the mammy housemaid with the loud voice, heavy set black one. Yeah, I remember all of that stuff watching. What was the
I
other
used
one?
to think when I was a kid, I used to think that was on Jemima.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
know what?
because
It
I,
might
I
have
was a
been.
little kid.
It
I
might
was a
have
little kid because
been.
you couldn't see her face. I
Yeah,
mean,
you couldn't see
you would
the
only
face.
see her legs and maybe her arms with a broom that she will beat Jerry
Beat
with.
Tom with. Yeah.
Oh my! I mean, yeah, yeah. But you couldn't see her face, and as a little kid, because I couldn't see her face, I used to think that may have been on Jemima.
Yeah, because the
Uh,
way she was dressed. What was another one that they did? The show that they used to do, Amos and Andy. The history of that. Amos and Andy was a show, I believe, in the 1920s or the 1930s, where it was two white guys that dressed in blackface and he imitated Black American, like Black American slang and different things like that. And
Mhm.
it was a caricature of they played a caricature of Black Americans. They was called Amos and Andy, and they pretended like they was dumb and idiotic and all types of stuff. They
well,
did documentaries on a lot of that stuff.
back in the 60s, when you have the Dick Tracy cartoons, you have these two characters. You have Gogo Gomez, and you had Jitsu. Okay, so basically, you're talking about a stereotypical Oriental person and a Latino. I mean, if you were to
Mhm.
try to, to recreate it with that type of mentality, you would be lynched.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't say don't take my word for it. Actually, watch the cartoons for yourself. You can see it.
Hmm, hmm.
But in any case, before I start to wrap this up, like I said before, I wanted to have a discussion regarding capital punishment. And like I said, I think both sides have valid points. Now, the next topic is going to be our friend, the brick lady, again.
Oh boy.
Oh man, is
I think
she
it's, no.
is she
Well,
free or is she locked
there is
up?
really not much. There is really not much that can be said right now. Now there is still a saga because she. I understand she's out on bail, but there is no trial yet. So there is a saga that is to be continued as to what happens with the girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
crazy man.
yeah, yeah,
But
we're not done with her. So
but
we'll see.
but you know what's the tragic thing about the whole thing?
What's
Mhm.
that?
And I'm going to give you two key points. Number one, African American men were portrayed in a horrible sight. Let's keep it real.
Mhm.
And everyone loves to dump on them. The other thing is that the fact is now, whenever a woman steps forward and claim they've been assaulted, the first thing we're going to think about is she scamming or this is real?
Well, I believe they should be investigated. I mean, not just taking her word for it.
But
That's how I look at it, and because I say that as somebody who once was accused of having done something wrong. That was years ago, and of course, nothing happened to me because they didn't. The authorities at the time they didn't take her word for it, so they started asking questions, and um they did a little bit of an investigation, and they found out that I didn't do any wrongdoing. So I was in the clear. So that's how it should be done. That's what it should be done.
Yeah,
That nobody can just go to the authorities and accuse somebody and assume that she's telling the truth. I mean, it should be investigated.
that's true. One thing I do want to end is on a positive note is that I'm really in touch with all the support that this platform has been getting within the last couple of months. I really appreciate and I value all the love and support I've gotten, and I just find it amazing, the growth of the platform.
Hmm.
Um, and in fact, within a 90-day period, I've gained 83 subs,
That's good.
that's great.
and
Yeah, I might
um,
have gained two or so, something like that,
I'm,
but in the last few days. But yeah, that's
but
good.
I'm gonna start joining you when you do your lives, Ramon. Now that if you do them on the weekend and everything, because I got a little bit of time. But yeah, like that's good. Definitely, that's great.
Yes, yes.
And I was
and
gonna ask you, Ramon, what do you think about the studies is coming out saying that people are starting to panic because you know men in general are finding less and less motivation to work
Mhm.
or to to do anything.
Anything when it comes to that, I mean, just earning a living, working,
Yeah,
dating.
like working, dating, like they're not participating in the workforce like they once did because they see no motivation in doing so.
Because what I have been trying to keep up more is when it comes to trying to get into relationships, because it's becoming more and more difficult to do that these days, it seems, in this society. But when it comes to working, eh, sometimes even I think, I mean, I can't do this anymore. But one has to earn a living, so I don't have much of a much of a choice there.
All the same.
Uh, but a part of me, if I can make a change, if I can do something else, something that allows me to stay at home, if I can figure that out, then that's what I would like. That's what I would like to do. Because sometimes I will admit, uh, having to get up at 5 in the morning is getting tiresome.
Yeah,
I just don't feel like doing that anymore. So, yeah. If I can figure something out and
yeah.
do something else, something different. Yep.
Well, I'm fortunate because in a few years I'm gonna be able to retire.
Yeah. I know. We know.
Hey, you put your work in, Jose. You paid
Yes.
your dues.
Yes.
Excuse me. I think I mean I'm not exactly young. I'm 60. I'm gonna be 62 this year.
Yeah,
So
Mhm.
that's why I said you put your work in. You paid your
Yeah.
dues.
Yeah. You have put in the time. You have done the time, and in your when it comes to your working years, your productive years, you have to put in the time. So it's time for you. It's coming up. The time for you to be able to kick back and relax a little bit.
wow.
That's good. That's good.
Well, hopefully when it's your turn, guys' turn to retire, you will be able to live, comfortably
Hmm.
and enjoying the fruits of your labors as well.
I've been thinking about it. I might not even be living in this country when it's time for me to retire. And they already say that Gen Z, that age
Hmm.
passed, man. And people have been getting on Whoopi Goldberg because one thing people are not realizing, Whoopi Goldberg is trying to say that this new generation is lazy and people are not working. And one thing she don't realize is, and they pointed out how out of touch she was because
Hmm.
everything has skyrocketed up compared to those days in the 80s and the 90s when it was easier to purchase a home.
Yeah.
And that's one
Yeah,
thing.
that's the common narrative that I hear a lot with people, younger people not being able to buy a house, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunately the thing is that when it comes to real estate, the house market, it just keeps getting more expensive, even though people can't afford to have these homes. And I'm not. I don't understand it. There has to be a change in that. Something that allows for things to be a little more affordable. So people do need a place to stay, to live. And keep rising the cost of real estate is. I don't see how is that a solution. I know there is an inflation. I get it, and everything costs a little more, but there has to be there should be more controls, and people should be able to get a home.
But okay. Now I don't see. I in general I don't see like the millennials and the Gen Z people as lazy. I think what it is that they have certain challenges that my generation did not have. One of the problem is that they're dealing with a great deal of student loan debt. Okay,
Hmm.
I mean we're talking about saying not just a couple of thousand. We're talking about say 100,000, 200,000. So it's very hard for a millennial or a Gen Z people in order to be productive because you got to take care of this huge amount of student loan debt, which is almost like the size of a mortgage.
That's because it's a scam, and it's been a scam, and it's been a scam for the rich elite to find a way to capitalize off of people. I believe in the 80s, going to a 4 year college was like $6,000 at the most. Now you're
Hmm.
talking about 4 year colleges for that's 60,000. That's like close to like no $40,000. And then on top of it, you still can't do nothing with a 4 year degree. A bachelor's degree is practically worthless almost. You have to still continue to go to school for a master's to even get somewhere. So
Yeah.
between that And then on top of it, the rising cost of homes and the rising cost of inflation. And the reason that I think they purposely spiked inflation is because a lot of people don't want to work these dead end jobs anymore, especially after COVID. They couldn't find a workforce, so they practically spiking inflation to force people to go in to try to get back into the workforce. And then part of that too, migration. Part of that too is one of the reasons why they want people to migrate, because to exploit them for the cheap labor that Americans won't do anymore. Like, and that's the it's a whole capitalist trick bag, and you have to follow it, and you have to follow it closely to even understand it. I'm hearing that these companies are buying up homes, like lots of millions and millions of homes, and they're going to be renting those homes. So if people, because people only can afford to rent these days, so if a person rents for the next 20 to 30 years and they happen to pass away, that home goes right back to those people that to the banks that's buying them, and they're going to rent those homes out to other people. And it's a similar practice. It's similar in the way of how they will purposely give people predatory loans, hoping that they default on their house, so the money that they already paid towards the house is gone, and then they can put the house back on the market. So it's all a game, man. It's all a game, and it's real messed up that a lot of people don't realize that or see it.
But you know,
that's why
another thing.
Investing
See,
outside of
another
the states. I mean, I don't think I can compete with that scheme, that scam, I should say. Can't do it.
See, another thing that we have to understand, that the template for success for my generation, it's not going to work with the younger generation. It's not. And plus, there are other ways that a person can earn a good income without a college education. You can learn a trade, you can learn the skill. I mean, things of that nature. Okay, it's just that unfortunately, some of us, and that's, we got to keep it real. Some of the people in my generation sold it on the millennials and the Gen Z people. They need to get a college education, and we drilled it and drilled it and drilled it and drilled it.
Yes.
The reality is that doesn't always work.
And it was like, and they was telling you just to go to school, get an education, and a lot of people fell for it, but they didn't know to get an education in what, because they didn't know what was paying, what was the, you know, a lot of people make the mistake of going to college and just taking up interest in what they, liked, and end up finding out that what they liked didn't pay any money afterwards. So it's a lot of stuff that's going on that, people don't want to acknowledge. And everything, the sheer capitalism, the bottom is about to fall out with this country, because you got too much people at the top hoarding all the wealth. They're literally hoarding all the wealth, and they're becoming greedier and greedier while the rest of everybody else is suffering. It's suffering. I just saw a video of a Jamaican lady. Like I tell people all the time, I know people be feeling like, when they coming from different countries, when they're coming from different countries, the American dream. The American dream is a lie. It's really like, that slice of American pie is really a sliver. It's not even, like this Jamaican lady was just saying, coming here, she was like, I was so happy to be in America to work, but the catch is that they don't tell you you're gonna work until you're dead.
Oh yeah,
Until you're dead,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. It's
Wow.
like you're running on a hamster wheel, and now they're trying to push getting what Social Security, or they're trying to push retiring to the age of 70 now.
yeah. Nikki Haley, that bitch. She's the one who's talking about that, pushing it up, because apparently that's not something that will affect her. So yeah, that's what it seems. That's what it seems.
Well,
They're trying to push it back. Mhm.
yeah. Well, good night, Keisha. Thank you for stopping by. So what we're going to do is we're going to take closing remarks. Can you guys hang out for like maybe 5 minutes or so in the backstage?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So now we're going to take final remarks. So we're going to take it from the lover of cold,
No,
who wants to be buried in snow, who
it's in the
thinks
60s out here. It's wonderful.
that's depressing. Who thinks Orchard Beach is the most beautiful beach in the world? Who think Orchard Beach is the French Riviera of the Bronx, and the water is almost pristine, pure that it's almost drinkable? Who wants to go to Times Square in shorts and sandals to watch the ball drop? Who's
Hell no.
desired to go to Albany in the middle of winter? Who thinks winter is the best time of year and will want winter to be 4 months long? The introvert Boricua.
Hell no. Thank you, Jose. But no, no. I mean, it wasn't. It was like at noon at about 2. It was about 70 degrees over here. That was wonderful. I could
Yeah,
actually feel the
that's
warmth of the
love.
sun again. It's yeah. It's feeling more normal now. No, it doesn't feel so much as it's being stuck in a freezer like you like. So hopefully it keeps warming up. I know that we still have to deal with February. I don't know what February is gonna bring, but hopefully it goes back to normal and it warms up. But yeah, Don Jose. I mean, when it comes to the subject, it's a good thing that we went over the subject. To put it in simple terms, when it comes to preventing a murder, not all the way. It's not gonna preventing murder all the way. But it can help. It can still mitigate the rates of the when it comes to people losing their lives because of the criminal actions of someone else. Um, but to a degree, as long as it is proven beyond reasonable doubt, I don't have a problem with somebody being put away. I mean, because they're not gonna be somebody's burden. Somebody becoming a ward of the state, that's becoming a burden for the taxpayer and so on. So that's in many basically how I see it. And I appreciate you having me on your panel, and I look forward to the next one. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, maybe if we're lucky in February, you'll experience some temperature near zero. That would be a great thing.
No, I already did. I already did. A few days back, I already did.
Oh, you lucky stick!
No,
You
no, no,
lucky
no,
me
no,
too.
no, no. I don't want to. Not again. Not again. Enough. I already had enough cold for the year. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let it warm up again. All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna put you in the backstage. Thank you very much. Before, please, guys, if you've not done so, please subscribe to the Intro of Boricua. He does have interesting content, and show some follow up to him. So I'm gonna put you in the backstage. Okay, Rakim, your final thoughts.
Thank you for allowing me up, Jose. I think Ramon covered everything that I would say. I think that it needs to be a thorough investigation before people come to the conclusion that it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt this person did this heinous act, and then I do believe people like that should be taken care of. But at the same time, I see your viewpoint as well, to make sure that that person is not being framed, or that person has not been uh, you know um, falsely accused of a crime that they did not commit, to the point that they pay the ultimate price. Because once that happened, then there's no turning back, and you know that's that. So I do agree on both ends. But thank you for allowing me up.
Well, thank you very much for stopping by. And of course, I will ask you if you're not done so, please subscribe to the 18th letter. He does bring in some interesting topics. And of course, we need to support a productive African American male like yourself.
Oh, thank you very much. That means a lot. Thank you very much, Jose.
You're welcome. So now I'm going to put you in the backstage. So go away. Now I'm going to give you my final thoughts. like I said before, I don't believe in capital punishment. However, I can see the logic behind those who are in favor. I can also see the logic as far as those who are against. The bottom line is this: we have to make sure that if we are going to inflict the ultimate form of punishment, that we must make sure that the person is actually guilty as charged. And the fact of the matter is, the only way the system is going to be changed is have to be a great deal of political will, which unfortunately I don't see that as far as our politicians concerned. Which is why we need to get some new young blood here in politics, that maybe we can try to make a dent and make things a little bit more um, equitable, so to speak. As always, a huge shout out to all those who in the chat, and a huge shout out to all those who appear on the panel. I will be back live on Wednesday talking about the Brick Lady again. Now, of course, she's out on bail, something to give you my perspective. So, and of course, all of you are welcome to opine after the stream is over. Just try to keep it respectable, or else you will be deleted. With that being said, we must do everything possible to minimize our presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by the stupidity and massive insanity. This has been another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron, saying good night, take care, peace, and stay blessed. Bye.